I told my first biological offspring that I have 2 sons and he's not either of them. When I was 20, my girlfriend told me she was pregnant. I was terrified, broke, and completely unprepared, but I told myself I wasn't going to repeat my own father's mistakes. I married her, got a warehouse job, and did everything I possibly could to be a real dad. For 8 years, I had my son every single weekend without fail. Didn't matter how tired I was, how long my shifts were, or whether I had homework from the night classes I was taking. I showed up every time. We didn't have much money, but we made our own fun. Backyard camping with a cheap tent from Walmart, blanket forts in the living room, movie marathons with dollar store snacks, pancakes every Sunday morning where he'd tell me all about school, friends, and whatever video game he was obsessed with that week. I truly believed we were building something strong. I thought I was doing it right. Then, when he turned 11, everything changed almost overnight. His mom started dating a wealthy guy, the kind who always had a new watch, a new car, or a new trip planned. Suddenly, my son didn't want to visit anymore. At first, I tried to be understanding. I figured he was excited about the vacations and gifts. I didn't want to be the jealous parent, so I kept calm and hoped the phase would pass. But it didn't pass. Not this weekend turned into once a month. Once a month turned into nothing at all. My calls went unanswered. My texts ignored. I even stopped by his school a few times just to try and talk to him for 5 minutes. But he kept his distance. No anger, no emotion, just distance. Eventually, things went through a legal process. I won't get into the specifics, but the end result was simple. He made it clear he didn't want me involved in his life anymore. Hearing that from a child you raised is a pain you cannot prepare for. I didn't handle it well at first. I felt like my entire identity had been ripped away. I kept working, but emotionally, I hit the lowest point of my life. Eventually, I decided I couldn't stay in that environment anymore. I moved back to my hometown, started therapy, and threw myself into rebuilding piece by piece. It wasn't fast, and it wasn't easy, but slowly I started to feel like myself again. Years later, I met the woman who would become my wife. She had an 11-year-old son, and at first I kept my distance because I was terrified of going through the same heartbreak again. But he was different. He would follow me around asking about tools, about work, about how to fix things. He'd help me in the yard. He'd ask if I was coming to his school events. He wanted me there. By the time he turned 18, he sat me down and asked if I would adopt him. His biological father had been gone since he was little, and he said he wanted a real dad. Signing those adoption papers was one of the proudest moments of my entire life. Now I have 3 kids. My oldest, who's serving in the Marines, and 2 younger ones I share with my wife. We have a stable home, inside jokes, holiday traditions, everything I used to wish for when I was younger. My life finally felt calm, complete, and peaceful. I didn't look back anymore. 3 weeks ago, that changed. My ex-sister-in-law called to tell me my ex-wife had passed away. I said I was sorry to hear it, but we hadn't spoken in 14 years, so there wasn't much else to say. I hung up and went on with my day. Then, on July 4th, while my family was packing the car for a picnic, someone knocked on the door. I looked through the glass and froze. It was him, my biological son, the same child who told me he didn't want me in his life. Older now, but those eyes were familiar. He said, "Hi, I'm your son," and everything inside me tightened. 14 years of silence, 14 years of rebuilding myself from the lowest place I'd ever been, 14 years of creating a life where I was wanted and valued. I said as calmly as I could, "I'm sorry, but I can't reopen this chapter of my life. I have 2 sons now, the ones who are part of my world, and I'm not going back." Then I closed the door softly but firmly. Later, I found out my sister had been giving him my contact information behind my back. She called crying, begging me to meet him for our mom's sake. But he had 8 years after turning 18 to reach out. 8 years of adulthood to make even the smallest effort, and he didn't. Now that his mother is gone, suddenly I matter. Suddenly I'm supposed to step back into a role he told me to abandon. I hope he builds a good life, truly. But I'm not reopening a wound it took half